Alright, this is Chat UTD. At any big club like United, you look for leadership, in particular when things are not going well. You look to leadership at the top of the club, guidance, figurehead or figureheads that will hopefully help guide you through the tough time and that get you through the other side of it. We have no such thing at United. Since Ineos came in, they've given very conflicting messages to what's actually happened on the pitch. So in February 2024, Jim Ratcliffe was interviewed and said he wants United to be competitive again, as in like right at the top of English football, competitive again within 2 or 3 years. Barada has come out with the ridiculous Mission 28 comment that he thinks we can win the league by 2028. Now, maybe they've misjudged the situation. Maybe they've come in and it's been a lot more difficult than they thought it was. So, okay, maybe you adjust your thinking as to what you can do. And there's two different routes you can go down regarding managers, and I'm going to explore those today. And I don't think United do either of the two things. I'm going to suggest that I think they need to pick a lane and get in it, but I don't think they will, and I don't think they ever have really with the Glazers historically, and now with Ineos as well. So in the last video, I mentioned the stages I think United need to go through to be successful. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Could take up to 6-7 years. In fact, I don't think it'll ever happen under this ownership structure, but you've got to be optimistic and hope, if you're a leader at the club at least, that you can do that. So they must have short, mid and long term objectives. Stage 1 was to sort of finish around 6th for a couple of years, level things out, at least start to make some inroads as to progress and chinks of light, moving in the right direction. I've already said it all before. Check out the last video if you want more detail on it. Now, let's just play devil's advocate. This is one way you could do it. Let's play devil's advocate as to how you get through those stages. Option 1 is, let's say Michael Carrick comes in as an interim this season for the rest of this season, and let's say steadies this. By the way, it could be rubbish, so I'm not saying this will definitely happen, but let's just, for the sake of the video, let's say he does all right, he settles things down, the players start to respond to him, we play some all right football, we have a decent run in the FA Cup, we finish 8th. In the summer, what they might think is, Michael Carrick could get us into stage 1 next season. He could see us have a top 6 finish and maybe do all right in a couple of the cups. So let's say he stays for another season. We finish 6th and we win a cup. What you're going to get then is a clamouring from United fans for him to get a long-term contract and loads of time, with the view that perhaps we will win the league with him. That's never going to happen. What United need to do, doing it the first way I'm going to suggest, is say, right, do you know what, Michael? You've taken us into stage 1, you've won a trophy, we've got some faith in you that maybe it's worth us exploring whether you can take us into stage 2. But at that point, as a club, you're already planning in your head who's going to be the stage 2 manager in case it doesn't work out, because it probably isn't going to work out. So you've got that succession planning. As soon as you see any chinks in his armoury, and you might think, well, he's probably not going to be able to be the stage 2 manager, you sack him and you bring someone in who is a stage 2 manager who you've already thought of. This is what we don't do at United. It has to get toxic before we'd sack someone. It doesn't have to be toxic. It doesn't have to be that Michael Carrick's done a terrible job, but he's done a stage 1 job and he started the stage 2 job, and you say, you've done brilliantly well, you've done everything we've asked you to do. In fact, you probably exceeded our expectations, but now we need someone for the next stage that we're in. Thanks for the input that you've given. Brilliant, off you go, head held high. Stage 2 manager comes in, maybe he oversees us finishing 3rd a couple of seasons in a row, and we might think, this guy could be the stage 3 guy who leads us to titles and being competitive right at the very top again. But again, you're already thinking of the next person if that one isn't. You think, maybe not looking like he can lead us to titles. Okay, off he goes, you bring someone else in. As I said, this isn't what United do. What United do is, they get a manager in, expect him to be able to bring the glory days back. As soon as it's looking like that's not going to happen, it gets really toxic. They say they're going to back him, they don't really back him, it gets even more toxic, and they sack him. And this is the way our club operates. This is the way us as fans operate. This is the way it's always been done. Doesn't have to be toxic to get sacked. You've done the job we've asked you to do. We don't think you can do the next bit, so we're going to let you go. I absolutely hate to use these as an example, but I'm going to talk about City. When they first came into their money, there wasn't 3 stages they went through, there was 2. They first came into their money, Mancini was their manager. Mancini's not a brilliant manager, but he won them the FA Cup, which was their first trophy in donkey's years, and he won them the league for the first time in even longer. And he won it pretty much because they spent loads of money on amazing players, and you'd have to be a bit of a dope not to win it with the quality of players they had. So they won the league. Then they didn't win the league, and they thought, you've served your purpose, you've got us those first 2 trophies, but you've not won it again. We're going to bring in Manuel Pellegrini. Deirdre Barlow. He comes in, he wins the league. He doesn't win it the season after, and I think they're still competitive in like the League Cup and things like that. They're doing all right in that. But they've started to realise, right, these 2 are stage 1 managers, Mancini, Pellegrini, want to win the league, but then not win it. Win the league, then not win it. These guys are fine. But they decided what they wanted was not just to win the league, but to absolutely dominate it. And they wanted to dominate in Europe, or certainly win European trophies as well. Pellegrini ain't that guy. So who is that guy? The one they've been planning to get for years, Pep Guardiola. No toxicity around sacking Manuel Pellegrini at all. Thanks for your time, off you go. Pep comes in, took him a season to settle in, but sure enough, 10 years he's been there now? 9, 10 years? Because he was the right manager at the right stage. So that is an example of having different managers for different stages of development of your club. No toxicity, you just need different people. United don't do it that way. But let's look at the other way. I'm going to play devil's advocate a bit here. The other way is playing the ridiculously long game. As in, they look at Amorim and think, I don't care where we finish this season. I 100% think he is the one that's going to bring us back to the glory days. And he's going to get us through all 3 stages, or he's certainly going to get us through the first 2, and we just have to hang in there. These are wrinkles that will be ironed out. These are teething problems. We'll be fine. We trust him. We're backing him. Don't care what anyone says. That would be that option. And let's look at reference points for that. I suppose the biggest one, but it's a long time ago, is Ferguson. Ferguson came in November 1986. Didn't win his first title until 1993. If we look at, again, 3 stages to success, the first 3 years really were building foundations, and then he went through stages 1, 2 and 3 very, very quickly. In 3 seasons, essentially, but it's because the building blocks have been put in place. Now, that's an example of being bloody minded and saying we don't care about the noise, we don't care what other people think around the club, the fans, the media, etc. You had strong people like Sir Bobby Charlton in there that was saying, no, he's doing stuff behind the scenes, I completely trust him, it's going to work out. Now, maybe we got lucky, but it did work out. I'm going to use a slightly different sport to further illustrate how this can work. I'm watching a documentary at the moment about the Dallas Cowboys. So obviously it's a different sport, it's American football. So they were a very successful American football team in the 70s. They were known as America's team. And in the 80s, some guy who came into money through oil bought the club. Not a dissimilar story, I'd say, to Jim Ratcliffe in some ways. Bought a club that is in the area where he's from, although he wasn't from that exact area, but in the area where he's from. A guy that has an interest in the sport, but he'd never owned an American football club before. I know Ratcliffe has Nice, but no real pedigree as an owner. So he comes in, this guy, and they'd fallen upon pretty difficult times, and he goes about sacking a much loved head coach, making quite a lot of unpopular decisions in terms of within the club. Does this ringing any bells? So for the guy that took over, he was only 46, so it's quite different. But for the guy that took over the Dallas Cowboys, Jim Ratcliffe. So he brought in a coach who had been the coach of a college American football team that were very successful. Now, college American football is massive in America, but I would say college American football and then going up to the Dallas Cowboys is the equivalent of Sporting Lisbon and going up to Man United. So for Jimmy Johnson, who was the manager, the head coach of the American football team, Ruben Amorim coming to us. Now, what their owner did was said, he is the best, and I trust him implicitly, and he is going to bring us back to the very top of American football. And for the first 3 seasons, it was absolutely dire. They were terrible. There was one season where they didn't win one game. There was no relegation in American football, but nonetheless, they didn't win one game. The crowd were in uproar, saying you don't know what you're doing, your tactics are all wrong, your recruitment's rubbish, you two don't know what you're on about, you're the two stooges. The manager himself was a really divisive character, angry, arrogant, alienated a lot of the players, very, very animated on the sidelines, strange behaviour. After 3 or 4 years, it started to turn. And I'm only at the 3rd or 4th episode, so they haven't won the Super Bowl yet. I assume that's what's going to happen next without wanting to give you a spoiler alert if you watch it, but you can tell that's where it's going. They've certainly improved a lot at the point that I'm watching it. That's an example of an owner going, he's my guy, and I don't care what you say, and I don't care what you say, and I don't care that there's a mountain of evidence to suggest here that this isn't going to work. He's my guy, and I'm sticking with him. Now, if United went down that route with Amorim, I wouldn't necessarily agree with it, but that's strong leadership. That's strategy. It would also be strong leadership and strategy if you had different managers for different stages, and you were always getting the right one for the right stage. That's also strong leadership. United don't do either of those things. So with Amorim, we hear they are backing him. They do think he deserves long-term support. But in the same breath, we're hearing, but we need to be in Europe this season. They want to fast forward to stage 1, as in finishing 6th and being in Europe. You can't have those two things together, backing Amorim and being in Europe. He's not getting us into Europe this season. Now, if you want to stick with him, you have to say, we have to write off Europe this year. We might have to write off Europe next year. But we're giving you every single bit of support we can, and we're going to block out all the rest of the noise because we think you're the man. That isn't going to happen. He's going to get sacked within the next couple of months, unless results turn around dramatically. So they don't do one or the other, United. And that shows a lack of leadership. It shows a lack of cohesive thinking. The other problem they've got is in that boardroom, I genuinely think they don't know their arse from their elbow. I don't think they know what they're doing. I think you've got some people who think he should be sacked. I think you've got some people who think he should be given a bit more time. You've got some people who probably would say, let's go in it for the long game. You've got some who think he should go after Saturday this week, after Sunderland. Some that would say he needs to go in the international break in November so we don't have to pay him as much. You've got all different voices. And where does the buck stop? Ultimately, Joel Glazer. There's a problem in itself. No leadership at the club. I hope you can see from the content of the video that there's probably more than 2 ways of doing it, but there's those two, I can see those 2 defined ways of doing it. You say, right, we go stage 1, we need stage 1 manager, a troubleshooter, a firefighter, a crisis manager. Stage 2, we need someone a bit better, and we've already been thinking about him for a year before we even get him. He might be able to take us into stage 3, which is winning titles, but if he can't, we've got another guy in mind to do that. That's one way of doing it. They're not doing that. The other way of doing it, that I'm talking about today at least, is bloody mindedness. I'm absolutely sticking with you come hell or high water within reason. They won't do that either. And you've got reference points for those 2 different ways as I've illustrated today. Do you know one of the biggest mistakes United made was not utilising the advice and acting on the advice of Ralph Rangnick. He is the best leader in terms of communication, strategy, pragmatism, calling it as it is. He's the best leader we've had at this football club since Sir Alex Ferguson retired. And he was there for about 5 months. And he was mocked, demonised, ridiculed, and ultimately sacked. But his views on recruitment, his views on players that we could have got in for next to nothing that he recommended that were not acted upon, his vision for the whole club and the way he saw what was going wrong, all of that was spot on. Never listened to him. So they could have saved themselves an awful lot of time, an awful lot of money. They needn't have even got Ineos involved if they'd have just acted on and listened to what he said. But they didn't. So it's all well and good having leaders. There might be good leaders there now. But if the key voices at the club are bigger, like Joel fucking Glazer, who's an absolute retard when it comes to football, if he's overpowering people, what's the point in having intelligent voices around you? You've got an absolute imbecile making the final decision, which won't be based on football anyway, it'll be based on money. The club desperately lacks leadership, desperately lacks direction, and you can see it written everywhere in the club's identity, ethos, and what's happening on the pitch right now. Let me know your thoughts. Glazers out.